Welcome to the late 2012 edition of the What's New 2012 from MCAD. My name is Dennis Barnes, for those of you who weren't logged in earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and start presenting what's new with 2013 SolidWorks. I'm going to probably repeat myself quite a bit because I tend to do that. But if you could, go ahead and type your questions in, and we'll see if we have time at the end to answer those. I'll try to get to those as much as I can. Also presenting with me today is Clay Mosier. He'll be presenting the simulation and 3D VIA sections of the SolidWorks 2013 What's New. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my screen on here so that y'all can see this construction line. I'm going to go ahead and start with the internals of SolidWorks 2013. Something we've had for a while with 2013 is the ability to actually add dimensions on the fly as we create model geometry. And the way we would normally turn this off is we would hold the Alt key down when we clicked so that that didn't happen. Well, new for 2013 is an option that's available so that if we want to have that ability turned on, but we don't want it to be on all the time, we can have it create a dimension only when we input a number into the input area. So as you can see, I've created a line here. If I wanted it 20 millimeters, it would be 20 millimeters. If I didn't put a number in there, it would only create it to the exact dimensions that I want. So that's auto dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some lines in here now, and I'm going to show you one of the newer features for 2013 that we didn't have before. This was the ability to extrude multiple thin profiles that were not complete contours. So before in 2012, all we were able to do was extrude one profile with a thin extrusion. Now with 2013, we can actually take these profiles, extrude them in one direction, or in the thin feature 2 millimeters, and select them as multiple contours as though they were multiple closed contours. So we can select one or all of these thin features and extrude them. Something that's also been added is in the direction 1 was always available on right-clicking. Direction 2 is now also available by right-clicking. Please notice over here, this is also new, the ability to add equations and global variables into the property dialogues for our extrusion properties. Go ahead and suppress. I'll hide this. Don't always merge. So there's our single extrude overlapping a multiple extrude that I have there. I'm going to go ahead and edit that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and move to the other part of this document. I'm going to go ahead and delete that thin extrude so that I can use this little post here. There's my little post in this putter. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at this particular putter head here. And one of the tools that was available before was part review. And what Part Reviewer allows us to do is to take a look at the parts in the rollback status and to roll forward one feature at a time. New in Part Reviewer is the sketch ability so that you can roll forward one feature and one sketch at a time. Also, if you have comments in your profiles, in your features, you can actually roll forward and get to the last profile that actually has a note in it. Right here there's a note that says, please move the logo to the center and make it larger. Well, I'm going to edit this. I can actually rename the feature right here and add another note. To that feature. Once I get done with my part reviewer, if I still need more information around the feature manager tree, I have the ability to take my feature manager tree and actually flatten the tree so that I see all of the items as they were created in the order that they were created. So sketches, absorb sketches, and so forth, so that if I needed to get to a sketch that I had actually needed to share with another feature, I could see it very quickly there and then add in the features here for my ribs. Something else that's been added is the fillet tool has been augmented here so that I can have a 2mm fillet, the old fillet tool, but I've been given this selection window here that was only available before in Fillet Expert. So now I can use that to propagate that fillet and very, very quickly add fillets. And be done. Oh, my fillet's too large, sorry. Something else that we have that's new in 2013 is the ability to customize more of our menus. So with our shortcut menu, what we have here is the ability to customize this menu, and when the system options come up, you see that there's an icon here for each shortcut menu, each pop-up as it's context sensitive. So what I have here is the assembly level menu. I'm just going to drag one of the items off of it, show you how easy it is to just insert the items. What I'm adding here is a center of mass icon. If I can get to the part one, that's what's been added right here. And if I use that to add the center of mass to my part, it comes up right there. If I do it at the part level, I get the center of mass, but I can also use the center of mass to create a reference point that I can drag up and down my feature manager to give an updated point of center of mass at any place in the build. So you'll see how this reference point is now higher than the original center of mass. When I go back to my assembly, the part level center of mass is here, and so is my assembly level center of mass. If I create a drawing for this assembly, go ahead and bring in that top view for that. That center of mass property that's in my feature manager is actually available for viewing in my drawing, and I can actually dimension to it if I need to. Next thing I'm going to show you is something else that's new in the sketch capabilities in SolidWorks 2013, and it's a new sketch tool called a conic. Basically, a conic is represented as a curve that intersects, a plane that intersects a conical surface. So the conic here has this row value that's represented here, or if you dimension it here, that controls the curvature of this conic. And by showing the curvature cones on this conic, you can very easily use it to create and match up other curves that are in your drawings, in your sketches. So if I set this the same here, it makes it quite easy to match up these curvatures. I can also dimension to these points, create relationships like tangency and so forth. So once that conic is completed in that part, hopefully you can see a very nice reproduction of the original curve there. What we have here is a router assembly, and the cool thing about router assemblies is they usually have all kinds of interesting mold designs in them. What I'm showing here is a surface knit that was put in this on this router design with the intent that we would take and be able to create some cuts and some extrusions to create this very nice design on here. Well, the new tool that we're going to use to do this is called an intersect tool. Basically what it does is it takes the two surfaces that we're using, calculates what the intersecting area is going to be, and then I select what areas I want to add or remove to create my extrusion. So I'm going to remove that area, this area, here and here. Go ahead and calculate the intersect. Hide that surface again. Did the wrong thing. And you can see that this intersect has created both extrusions and cuts that would normally take quite a long time to accomplish using older methods. And then it gets propagated to the assembly. Something that we've always had in SolidWorks is the ability to generate patterns. Well, with the new feature here, we have the ability to actually vary the pattern distance and pattern dimensions across our linear patterns. In this particular pattern, we had this regular pattern, but what happened was the length of the pattern was extended over the distance, and the distance was changed in direction 2 to skip to miss the SolidWorks logo there. For this pattern, all that was done was the pattern was generated in both directions, and it was reduced by 10 millimeters in each direction as the pattern was propagated. So let me show you how easy this is to do here. We'll take this extrude here, go ahead and start a linear pattern. Select my direction, 30 millimeters. There's a preview right there. Go down to the instances to vary here and start separating the distance here. So if I add .30 millimeters to my spacing, then I can actually select any other dimension that I want to change. So I'm going to change the slot width and the slot length here. The slot width, I'm going to go ahead and add 4 to it. That's the slot length. 40. Slot width is going to be 4. So as you can see, what's happened here is this last slot has just gone off the edge of the part here. So what I can do is I can very easily just edit that one instance so that the length is 150 millimeters, completing that pattern. What I'm going to show you now is an advancement in interference detection. When you click calculate on a part like this, typically you're going to get interferences when you have cosmetic threads. So in the past, with SolidWorks 2012, what we had was this fasteners folder that we could add, and it would hide all of those interferences, and they wouldn't clutter up our interferences. The problem with that is that it misses some things. With 2013, we actually have a new type of folder called a matching cosmetic threads folder. And what it did was it put some of the holes in there, but some of the interferences that were relating to fasteners that would have gotten overlooked before are now showing because of this. In this situation, I have a mismatched hole. The hole should be 8 millimeters, and it's really only 6. In this situation, I have an interference with the bolt. This would not have been shown if the fastener was actually in its own folder. We're going to take a look at some of the annotations here for cosmetic threads. In an assembly like this where we have a lot of tapped holes, the cosmetic thread callout can actually get quite busy here. So what we have the opportunity to do now is we can actually turn off the cosmetic threads and leave on the shaded cosmetic threads to show where we have tapped holes. This cleans up the part quite a bit. Something else that's new is a new type of hole wizard that's been added for 2013. We had drill sizes, helicals, screw clearances, and tap drills. Now we have actually dowel holes. The dowel hole lets you set the diameter of the hole and set the type of clearance for the dowel, or interference if you like that. I'm going to go ahead and add a dowel hole in here. To match up these dowels that are here. Well, for whatever reason, my snap to is not working for my center holes. So I'm just going to have to guess. And there's those two holes with the dowel sticking through there. Now, if we go ahead and open the drawing for this, we can see that the dowel has its own type of call out here in the drawing. While I have this drawing open, I can show you something else that's new for drawings, and that's the ability to actually take the drawing and save it, save the view, either as DXF or DWG. Something else you might want to do also is you can take and convert the sketch to a, convert the view to a sketch. And you can either replace it with a sketch, replace it with a block, or insert as a block onto this. This will help really reduce your overhead if you have a really busy drawing with a lot of detail on it. We're going to move on now and take a look at some new configuration capability in SolidWorks. What I have here is a pneumatic cylinder, and the configuration dialog is already open. I'm going to go ahead and open the configuration table in a new window. Previously, this was a problem because there would have been a window that had hidden behind it sometimes and get it hung up. So SolidWorks has made this so that this window automatically pops up, and then it allows us to come up full screen in the Excel spreadsheet, so we don't have to reorganize, change our view at all. Something else that has been added is the ability to do data validation within these configurations. So let me just show you how quick and easy it is to create a new configuration with this. Basically, copy the line down, click on the selections inside the menu there, and then suppress resolved. Once you close the Excel spreadsheet, it tells you you've added the configuration, and now that configuration is available for use. Something else I can show you here with this this rod is we have quite a few configurations for this particular rod. And you'll notice there's a couple of extra icons here for this rod. The little check boxes means that these configurations have actually been loaded into memory and are cached. The ones that have a minus sign are not cached. So if you have a part that you want to get loaded into cache all the time, the best way to do this is just to right click and go ahead and set it up so that it adds the rebuild and it gets cached with it. This is a great way to save space on your files if you're having to move your files around some. Some other things that have been added, I'm going to go ahead and open this window here and show you that SolidWorks actually has added the ability to configure the materials into the parts in the configuration. So in this situation you'll see here that this has been changed from ASI 1020 to 1060 alloy. This was not previously allowed before to configure the materials. We're all familiar with exploded views in 2012. Well, in 2013, we can actually add another exploded view to the same configuration. So what I'm going to do here is show a secondary exploded view at the other end of this. This is a great way to show assembly instructions. Exploded view 1, exploded view 2, and all these configurations can be used in the drawings and the drawing views. For those of you that use speed packs, we've done some changing with the speed packs in SolidWorks 2013. What we have here in these particular speed packs here, they need updating. Well, normally you'd have to go to open the subassembly and actually update the speed pack. But here we can actually update the speed pack right from the assembly in SolidWorks. Or if we wanted to recursively update all the speed packs, we could use the speed pack update button in the command manager for the assembly there. So I'm going to go ahead and update these speed packs. To get rid of those errors there, and they're identified as speed packs. Something else we can do in SolidWorks now is actually create speed packs in the subassembly in a couple of different ways. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a graphic speed pack. I'm going to undo that. So there's my speed pack down there. You guys familiar with that transparency bubble there? I'm going to go ahead and do a different kind of speed pack with this one. This is going to be a mated speed pack. There's that transparency bubble. Now, what SolidWorks gives us is a new option now to go ahead and change those speed packs. But in the options area, if I forget where that is, I can actually search for it using this new search feature in the options. So if I look for speed pack graphic circle here, this tells me to display the speed pack graphic circle. If I turn that off, now instead of the graphic circle, I get a little icon with a little half moon there, half white, half black moon. If I want to turn that back on, all I have to do is hit Alt-S, and it toggles my speed pack circle on that. Something else that's been changed in the drawings for speed pack is the ability to show the speed pack items in the drawing. So we have a section view here, and the speed pack part of it has been hidden, but I can actually display only the speed pack bodies now in that section view. We're going to take a look now at some sheet metal enhancements that have happened in SolidWorks 2013. What we have here is a basic component box. But what's been added here is now we have folders for the sheet metal features that correspond to the flat pattern features. So each sheet metal feature has its own flat pattern feature, and they're all in their own little folder there. If you use forming tools in SolidWorks sheet metal, you'll know that sometimes it's difficult to place them. Something that's been added to the form tool feature is a tab here for insertion point. So you can take and set an insertion point on your form tool so that you can place it perfectly as you drop it onto the component there. So let me get this. That's set on the midpoint there. Go ahead and save that feature now. When I go to use that, it's going to take and come drop out right onto and then my position can be very easily aligned with a minimal amount of adjustments. Bend notes have been kind of a difficult thing in SolidWorks 2012, but now we have the capability to control these inside the drawing view property manager. We can actually turn them on and off all at once, or we can actually edit them the same way we edit our callouts for our dimensions and for our for the hole callouts and so forth. So you can build this note using these icons down here. Actually add text into the note. If you have notes that are on the same vertical line, you can actually merge them so that they only show up once here. And it's real easy to go ahead and insert a bend table for this flat pattern. You can either use alpha or numeric tags. It sets the fixed face and it sets tags for all the bends, direction, angle, radius. If you want, you can actually insert another column and add custom properties like the bend order. Something we've always been able to do inside SolidWorks eDrawings is add these markups to share when we collaborate with people who aren't using SolidWorks. People who have eDrawings can use this and create these markups and send them back to us, but then we have to open them in eDrawings to see the markups. Well, in 2013, I can actually see the markups actually in the drawing. So here's the markups that have come in from the eDrawings markups. And I can actually even insert other markups that were saved from another collaborator. Like the manufacturing engineer. So they show up right here. And I can actually zoom to the markup view. This one says add center marks. This one says add borders. This one says there's a dimension missing. This one also says there's a dimension missing. So if I hide these markups, I can actually start to put these changes into this drawing. So adding center marks wasn't that big a deal in 2012, but in 2013, I can actually create the center lines, and then once they're in my drawing, I can actually take them and move them to a different layer if I want. So I can change the layer right now. There we go. Right now the layer is center, but I can bring up the whole list of layers and change these annotations and put them on any layer that I want. I also have access to the old layer dialog to see which layers are visible and which layers are not. Something that's also changed about dimensions is I have this dimension here that's got too high a tolerance in the precision of the too high decimal places in the tolerance dimension. So I can actually link the precision back to the document so that everything remains copacetic there with those dimensions. Something that didn't work very well in 2012 too was breaking of extension lines and dimension lines. So if I take this dimension here and set it so that it breaks on these three other dimensions, I can select this break lines and actually break dimension lines, extension lines, or both. So I'm just going to break the extension lines for this, and you'll see how nicely it breaks those extension lines, but not the dimension line. This operates very well in 2013. Something else that's been added is in the tolerance, the GD&T block, is the ability to add a note below the block there without actually having to add a separate note. So it's part of the block and it actually moves the dimension line so that it fits in there properly. So I'm going to go ahead and add some dimensions in here to finish up that, that detailing. SolidWorks, one of the settings in SolidWorks is to actually be able to import different types. Something that's new also is a specific dimension that already has tolerances on it. So you can just highlight that and only import those dimensions. Radius dimensions have been set up before so that the arrow always is in relationship to the text, but something new in 2013 is the ability to take those dimensions with the radiuses and set the smart arrow so that it's always pointing away from the text, no matter where it is around the arc there. Save quite a bit of time when dimensioning arcs. Note blocks. Something you hadn't been able to do when you were editing a note block is actually be able to pan and zoom around the document to create references to other items in the document, like dimensions and so forth. We've added some formatting capability to the note block here by being able to add a border with some padding around it, and be able to do the same thing inside the text, even to items inside the text. The note told me I had to add some baseline dimensions here, so all I need to do here is go ahead and add to the baseline dimensions, which is new. Those were legacy, so now I just add in my baseline dimensions for this groove here. My dimensions have gone off the sheet, but what's nice now is this pop-up dialog has now given me all of the alignment capability for my dimensions, so with just a little bit of a move of my wheel here, I can bring those dimensions right into alignment onto my sheet. So now that I've completed all the markups, I need to indicate that the markups have been completed. So the best way for me to do that is to go ahead and remove these markups so I can delete them all, and now I can add my own markups. So I'm going to add revision cloud markups to tell the annotator that that the revision has to be changed. So I'll put one there. Put a little cloud all the way around this one. And put a little circle around these items here. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and do a save as on this. Close it. Go back to eDrawings and open it in eDrawings. Must have done something wrong when I saved the part. Get that back up here. There we go. Try that again. Tessellation data. Wow. Never saw that before. Well, the markups do translate back to the eDrawings file, so you kind of have to take my word on that. Moving on now, let's take a look at the enhancements for balloons. 2012 gave us the ability to reorder and very quickly create auto balloons. But what happens when you have a part that you've done some modifications to and added parts that aren't ballooned already? So I'm going to go ahead and unsuppress these components here. Some fasteners. You'll see that the BOM was updated with all the new parts, but now the parts in my exploded view don't have balloons on them anymore. Well, this is pretty easy. All I have to do is click on the view, go to auto balloon again, and it gives me the opportunity to resequence or replace the balloons. Well, I'm going to go ahead and replace them because I needed to add those new ones. So now it replaced and resequenced, and now all of my components have balloons. Let's take a look at adding section views. SolidWorks 2013 has added the best feature of all, I think, in section views, in that there's only one section view selection, and it's very easy. It automatically comes in either as a vertical section view or horizontal or aligned. Basically, all you have to do is come in here to your drawing and just snap it to whatever feature you want it to hook to. You also get this little pop-up window that'll let you do jogs inside your section view. So if I wanted to create a jog here, I could jog it there and there, and then take and jog it there and then once I have it completed, there's my section view. Simple as that. If I want to create an aligned section view, just select the Align Section View, click on it, click on the Start, and then Snap. If I want to create a radial offset, all I have to do is click to there, and snap the end. Confirm it. There's my section view. Now, half sections were a lot more difficult before. Now, SolidWorks has given us a tab for half sections that makes it super, super easy. So half sections here, all you have to do is select the quadrant and the direction, snap it to the center of your part or wherever you want it, and there's the section view. Next, we're going to take a look at some of the routing enhancements for SolidWorks 2013. This is a fairly large routing assembly here, and I'm going to use a specific view here. This is something new that I hadn't showed you before. This is now the view cube that lets you pick and choose all of your views using the space bar. It lets you preview the standard views so you can see what's going to come up before you click on it, or you have this graphic representation in your area there that automatically turns the view, rotates and sets it. You can set this so that it either comes up or doesn't come up if you don't like it. You can actually save views for use in other drawings and so forth. Or if you don't want the space bar to come up, just a control space bar just brings up the cube for you. So I'm going to take a look at this route right here. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to add something new in SolidWorks 2013 called slope to this particular route. So by editing this route, I can actually add slope to it. It asks me for a gravity plane and a start point, and see how it built that angle right into that line there. It rerouted, shortened all the other routes, and changed the weld angles on all the pipes to accommodate for that slope there. Something else that's new is, I'll get out of that route. Like I was saying, something else that's new is the ability to route along geometry. So we have this route here. I'm going to go ahead and edit it. Go ahead and start an auto route on this. Route along geometry there, and now it's going to look for a selection here. So the beginning of my route, and then a plane to route along, and then another plane to route along. Select the other end of my route, and a plane, another plane, the back wall there, and the connection point for my route, and now I have this pipe that's been routed all the way around along the geometry that was existing in my building there. Very quick way to just generate a lot of routing in a very short amount of time. Let's take a look at some assemblies here. What we have here is a automated track layer, and you'll notice that the center of gravity has been identified on this, and the track layer, the track here has been set up as in context assembly for this, but it doesn't really give us a good representation of what the center of gravity is, center of mass is on this particular part. So what we can do with this is we can select this assembly, and then the properties dialog, set it as an envelope. And what it does is it sets it transparent, and it removes it from the mass calculations. So you'll see now my center of mass has been moved to the appropriate area in the assembly. So let me show you something about these components here for this particular assembly. There's quite a large number of components here. So sorting through these to find them is kind of tedious. What SolidWorks 2013 has added here is these little quick filters, so that I can either filter on a part, on an assembly, a drawing, or any combination. I can even just select the top level assembly here to just zero in on whatever the top level assembly is within this folder. I'm going to go ahead and open the drawing here, and I'll show you what happens when you set that envelope in the drawing. The envelope is not going to show here when this drawing comes up. So it's completely disappeared from that drawing, that assembly drawing. And if you want to see it, basically what you need to do is go to the properties of the dialog of the drawing there and actually show the envelope. Back to the assembly here, I'm going to show you something. Before, when you wanted to delete parts out of the assembly, what would happen is the entire assembly would get deleted if you accidentally tried to delete a certain part or a subassembly within the parts there. So I can actually just go ahead and delete all these items right out of this primary assembly from the subassembly, and they'll just all go away. Another new feature is the ability to select the subassembly. So now I've right-clicked on a part here, and it shows me which subassemblies it's contained within. So I can either look at the outline for that subassembly or the outline for that one and see which one I might want to open. I'm going to go ahead and select that one and open that subassembly. I said edit, didn't I? I didn't want to edit that assembly. Get it. Open it. That again. There we go. So there's my assembly now, my subassembly with the missing items. So if I want to add those items back in, something I can do now with 2013 is actually browse and select multiple items to be brought back into my assembly all at the same time. So SolidWorks starts by creating the mates for me as I click and bring the parts in. So it very, very quickly reassembles the components for me and reassigns the mates. Didn't used to be able to just take a part, a subassembly, and replace it with a part of the same name, but now with 2013 I can do this. I can take this subassembly and replace it with a part that's in a different folder that has the same name. Have to select the items for the mating though. And now I'm done. Something else we can do now is take individual items out of the subassembly, whether they're sequential or non-sequential, and add them into new folders. I'm going to call this assembly elements. And then within the assembly elements, I can actually create another subfolder just for my routing items. And call that routing. So you can create as many subfolders as you want within each folder that you have created here. Something new for Weldments is the ability to add multi-body library features. Right here I have a table and I want to add a leveling foot to the leg here. First thing it looks for is the placement plane and then the mating edges. Once I get that in there, I can actually set the offset or any of the other dimensions that are allowed there. I can take this component now and put it within all the legs by using a sketch-driven pattern. Now it's been propagated to all the legs. If you look at the cut list here, you'll see that all these items were added to the cut list. So if I do an update to my cut list and a rebuild, you'll see that that item was added to the bill of materials, but there's no description. So this new feature here to add bounding box, create a bounding box around my cut list item, gives me the ability to access all of the properties, custom properties for this feature, and have them populate inside the bill of materials and update when those features get changed. We're going to take a look at the costing capabilities in SolidWorks now. What we have here is a bench that's made out of sheet metal. We get to it through our evaluation tab here. Basically, we just need to set up a template with all our costing information. Still loading. There we go. And it brings in all of the components that it's looking at in the part that it can create costing for. I have a couple here that are a couple of cast feet that I need to remove from the calculations, and now I can actually build a cost evaluation on this. So it's going through each component and taking a look at the materials and the activities that have to occur on the materials, like cuts and bends and so forth, and associating a cost to each one, as well as a setup cost for these operations. And it's going to be creating a cost estimation for 100 pieces of this particular unit. The lot size setup, here's the default is 100, but you can change that. And then here's the cost estimation down here. So as you can see, here's the cost for the operations for the individual parts. Setup cost is 0, and the no-cost items are these 2 cast feet. Now, if I wanted to, I can actually add an operation to this, custom operation like painting, welding, anodizing, or so forth. I'm going to go ahead and add some welding time to this, 2.5 hours. And my cost automatically updates and shows a delta of 42% in my cost. So let's say I change one of my parts by adding a logo to it. If I take a look at my cost now, it says that I need to update, and then when I update the results, it shows a approximately $6 increase in cost for this particular part to do this stenciling. When we take a look at costing individual items that are machined, we've been able to do this before, but what's been added to 2013 is the ability to change the stock material and the operations on a machine part. So originally this would have been a block, but see, now I can select a cylinder, and I have milling operations in a lathe that this would happen to this part to get it fabricated. So obviously a turn part is a little bit more expensive than a machine part according to this estimation. If I start with a block, the operations and setup costs are a little bit less. Now if I look at a different machining operation like the plate on that assembly, what we see is the same kind of operation with the block fabrication. But what happens is I have an item down here that says no cost was assigned, because this was a hole that was big enough that SolidWorks couldn't decide whether to mill it or drill it. So what I can do is I can take this hole actually and just drop it into my mill operations, set a mill size, and SolidWorks will automatically associate the cost of that, about $3. We're going to take a look at appearances improvements in 2013. I'm going to go ahead and open this desk assembly. If you remember from 2012, adding appearances to a part was just as easy as dragging and dropping from our Appearances tab over here in the Task Manager. So if I picked organic material, wood, oak, let's say I selected something like polished Japanese oak. Just drop it onto the part there, select the part type that I want to modify. I'm going to go ahead and pin this so it stays out here. So you'll notice here that the scale of the grain here is different for these two parts, and this was something that was happening typically in 2012. Well, in 2013, we have the ability to not scale the appearances there. I'll go ahead and search for it again. I'm going to say don't automatically scale that appearance when I drop it onto there. So I'm going to undo that appearance. And apply it to that part. So now that the scale will be the same, it won't be changing. Something else we can do now is with this pop-up bar, we can actually pin it so that it selects the same thing every time we drop the appearance on a part. Well, this can get kind of tedious, so SolidWorks has given us the capability of actually copying appearance and pasting it. So now I can just go from part to part with this pinned and the selection made and paste my appearance. Go ahead and leave that pin because I'm going to use it for my other part. Now I've got this desk. Take this computer, copy it, paste it to the monitor, and I can go ahead and unpin that. So let's take a look at some of the new appearance capability in SolidWorks 2013. We've added a partner for new design materials called Luxology. These are actually available on the customer website, the customer portal in SolidWorks, so you can download all these Luxology appearances for these organic materials and surfacing. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at one of these. This was a new one called Liquid. And basically here are the selections in here: milk, blood, red wine, white wine, amber beer, light beer. I'm going to go ahead and put orange juice in my glass here because this is a juicer. And then I'm going to actually take a look at the Luxology materials appearances, and I'm going to grab something in here called orange peel or orange skin, and I'm going to put it on this part right here. So now that I have this set up, I can actually do a little bit of a rendering here. Go ahead and do a preview of this render. You'll see how nicely these textures show up in the render. Hopefully you can see this. Try that again. Well, my preview doesn't seem to want to work. I'm going to go ahead and do a final render on this. Hopefully it'll come up with my preview and my final at the same time.
Hey Dennis, I'm not sure, but the render may not be coming across because of the Windows colors for GoToMeeting.
Oh, you think that's possible?
It's possible. I've seen some things like that before.
Well, now you tell me. So let me try to do this off the screen here then. Oh, this is so cool though. I hate to not be able to show it. It doesn't look like it's working, but I think let me try something here. I had tried to do a network rendering. That could be part of the problem. No, sorry guys, network rendering isn't going to work. Or rendering isn't going to work. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close all my files in SolidWorks. And I'm going to bring up CircuitWorks. With CircuitWorks, you can actually open an ECAD file. Looks like I had one open already. And basically it shows all of the different components in the ECAD file. It's got the board outlines, the different layers, plated holes, non-plated holes, vias, pads, the different components. You'll see there's a couple of warnings here in these two components. Basically the reason for those warnings is because they've been set at a 0 height. So I'm just going to go ahead and give them a 1 millimeter height. And this keep out area, I'm going to go ahead and filter that out of the SolidWorks rebuild. So I'm going to take this component now that I've finished messing with it here, and I'm just going to go ahead and build a SolidWorks model out of it, get this warning. And in a very short period of time here, I'm going to have a full 3D model of this circuit board with all its components. While this is happening, I want to talk a little bit about one of the other capabilities in 2013. If you've upgraded to SolidWorks 2013, you can actually save SolidWorks 2013 files and open them in SolidWorks 2012 Service Pack 5. So we give you the capability in SolidWorks 2012 Service Pack 5 to open a SolidWorks 2013 file, but it opens it as though it was an imported file, so there's no ability to modify any of the features or actually even see any of the features on the component. But it does give you the ability to put it in assembly and do other in-context relationships to it. So here's this 3D model of that circuit board. You'll notice it's got all of the surface mount items, ICs, the conductive layers, the board outline, vias, non-plated through holes, and plated through holes. and all the components that were on here, along with the tab there for the SolidWorks area, so you can take a look at all the different entities of the SolidWorks in the SolidWorks tab. So that's all I have. I'm going to go ahead and turn over the presentation to Clay, and he'll take over.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. So that was a whole lot of information we've gotten. That was a real good job there. We're almost done. We're coming down the home stretch here. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a few more topics that I'm going to be covering. The first one of those that I'm going to be going into is actually a new product that SolidWorks has out. It's called SolidWorks Electrical. What this is a tool that comes in two different components. The first one is a 2D schematic tool, which is what we're going to look at first. What this does is this allows the electrical engineers to work and collaborate on projects. So what we'll do is we actually come in, we have our project manager, and you can select which project you want to actually be working with. In this case, I'll work at the packaging line, and I'll open this up. We see we've got a couple of different views that we have here. I can look at it from a location view as well as the different components and the symbols and parts that are associated with them. We also have a document book view of this, so we can see things like cover pages. I've got schematics, reports, a bunch of different information. One of the things that's included in this is the concept of the single line schematic tool. What this is generally used for is the ability to add the different a high-level view of the system and how all the different things connect. So if you see here, we've got some motors going into connectors, through terminals and into LED indicators and some of the things of that nature. If I wanted to add another symbol, so say for example I'm needing to add another motor, there's a built-in symbol library within SolidWorks Electrical that allows you to pick from a bunch of default symbols of what you want to pick. I can search through the different areas of this. I can find the symbol that I'm wanting to deal with, and when I find the symbol I want, I just simply drag it and drop it into the system. I can leave this as just a symbol representing a specific motor, but one of the nice things and powerful things that you get in this is that even at this level, you can actually assign this to a specific manufacturer's part. So you can actually assign manufacturing information to this. I can search on things like manufacturers, types, article numbers, what library I'm searching in, anything along those lines. I go ahead and pick whichever item I want to have with this, and I can select that information. And we can see it actually is starting to capture specific manufacturing information about that. I want to connect this motor up, so I'll go ahead and I'll select the drawing tool for drawing a cable. And again, it's just basically a drawing tool where I can come in here and I can connect the motor up to the system. And once again, just like I could with the motor, I have the ability to come in and look at the detailed cabling view of this information. What I can do now is I can do things like assign the cables, pick different cores, whatever I want, for the different types of wires that I'll be dealing with. And in addition to that, I actually can link this up into the different areas. So if you see here, I can just select on the different connection points here, and I can connect those cables in, and the information is automatically updated into the system. I can add additional terminals if I need some for my terminal strips. So in this case, since I have 4 new wires, I'm going to need to add 4 new terminals. And again, I just select these things, and I connect this information up. So at this point, you're seeing I've actually got a high-level drawing, but it's actually collecting information about this system and the manufactured parts that I'm dealing with. And this is just at the high-level single-line diagram. Getting into some more complex tasks, we may want to move on to defining the power and circuits control. So if I open this up, we can see I've got a multi-line schematic dealing with the different powers and the motor connections on this. There's a number of different drawing tools that are contained within this system, so I can draw things such as wires. I can insert symbols. I can add any type of information I want to create this information. But something that's really powerful within the 2D tool that we're dealing with here is the ability to have macros. What you can do with the macros is you have the ability to copy or reuse existing circuits or existing information that you've set up. In this case, we have a motor start circuit that we're using in this information. And so what I can do is I can actually just grab this and drag it onto the system, and it'll actually bring up all that information for me so I don't have to redraw it every time I'm dealing with it. Now if I take a few more clicks, what I can do is I can actually come in here, update, make sure everything is in location 2, and then I can come in and I can actually update this information to use the existing mode that I defined in the single line schematic that I was dealing with. So we see here, I'm telling it I want to actually use information that I've already created. So just creating that single line sketch actually is updating information that's being shared throughout the system. This way I don't have to redefine things and set up other information and duplicate my work, which could cause errors and other types of things along those lines. We see from what I'm looking at here, I've pretty much got this set up the way the other 2 motor starts are working. However, I am missing a terminal strip. Right here with the drawing tools, you actually can insert terminal strips of what you're dealing with. I can insert one terminal strip, or I can insert multiple terminal strips at a time. So if I'm going to go ahead, since I'm going across 4 wires, I'm going to insert multiple terminal strips, and really all I have to do is drag this down, and it's going to actually give me my new terminal strips. I can choose an existing one, or I can actually go ahead and select it for all the different terminals. So now we see it automatically kept with the numbering system. I've got my terminals of 9, 10, 11, 12, which went right along with that information. So that's a look at how you would be dealing with something like the power document. Other things that we're looking at would be like the PLC inputs, PLC outputs, the control information. And you see all the way through this SolidWorks Electric, you can open up anything and you can take a look at the manufactured parts. You can take a look at the circuits that you're dealing with. And you also see some color coding, which is giving you information relating to whether or not those cables are actually connected up to the different terminals and what type of information needs to be connected. There's a number of reports that can be created from within the electrical 2D. Some of these would be the bill of materials, the list of wires, the list of cables, PLC inputs and outputs. There's a number of different things that you can have with that, and this is all controlled through the report manager. So we see here I've already got some reports in here. I've got list of cables, I've got list of wires. If I wanted to add another report, I would just come in here and I would say I want to add another report. We've got a list of different reports that we're dealing with. Right here we can see here's a PLC input-output report. I'll just go ahead and select OK, and then I'll go ahead and generate it. So now we see it's generated my list of my PLC inputs and outputs. I can open that up, I can take a look at it, and we're actually seeing right here where we see the list of inputs and outputs, what the main functions are, and a number of other pieces of information that are pertinent to that different report. One of the nice things about using SolidWorks Electric 2D is it does behave very similar to SolidWorks. You see you've got a left-hand side tree here. If I wanted to create this into a folder, much like Dennis was showing you before, I simply just have to drag this into a folder. After I close it. And it will update the information and put it into that tool. I believe I have it open in another diagram, so I can't actually create that. But anyway, taking a look at some of this information, we can see we've got information that's being captured, and these reports are automatically being generated based on the information that I'm dealing with. Some of the things that it can't do, however, are things, or in the 2D environment alone, are things such as generate wire links or do panel optimizations and things along of that nature. And that's where the second portion of the SolidWorks electrical tool comes in, and that is the SolidWorks Electrical 3D. So what we're seeing here is a pallet dispenser machinery. In particular, what we're going to be looking at is this control box of what we've been dealing with. The nice thing about SolidWorks Electrical in the 2D and the 3D is they actually have a bidirectional link. So as you update things, that information is automatically updated. So you can see I've got my access to my projects. I've actually got the same information that I would be dealing with down here. We see I've got my reports. I've got my new report that I just generated is actually listed over here in this section. And I can actually have access to that directly in the SolidWorks 3D tool. That's a powerful thing because a lot of times if you're a mechanical engineer and you're just dealing with the wiring and the cabling, you're not going to go into the 2D tool, but you want to have access to that information. So we can take a look at this line diagram that we just created. We see it's been automatically updated as I saved it with the new information. Within the tab, we have access to the different areas and the different information that we're looking at. We can actually look at the different components, and we can quickly see what components have been placed, as indicated by the check mark, what components have not been placed, and we can actually bring those components into the system. So let me go ahead and switch to a better view of this electrical enclosure here. And so we can see here, the other option I would have is to actually hide things that have already been inserted. And now I only have a list of things that have not been inserted yet. Now if I find something I want to insert, I can actually insert it into the tool, and I can align it using snap-tos and SmartMates, or I can actually associate it with something if I've already placed that CAD geometry in the tool. So I simply would come in and say associate, and you see how my drawing has changed. Basically, it's telling me what components I have in the 3D model that actually has not been assigned to something. In this case, there's only one thing that's left for me to be able to assign it to. Go ahead and select on that. Click OK, and now that's actually been assigned to a component. And the nice thing is, as I select on these things, if I want to see what is related to what, let me go ahead and clear this. If I were to select on K3, it tells me which one that is. If I go to K2, it shows me graphically what I'm dealing with. So SolidWorks Electrical also gives you a number of different tools for what you're wanting to do. So like I said, such as routing cables. You can actually do some routing paths. You can update bill of material properties. You can align components. So one of the things you could do is if you want to evenly space these different components across the rail, you could come in and you could say, I want to evenly space these. And I want to say, let's give them a separation of 10 millimeters. Click OK, and it's going to actually automatically move those and space those along that rail to the proper spacing that I indicated. Now when it comes to actually routing that information and sending the wires that I defined in the 2D sketch diagram, I can actually have it do an automatic routing, but I can actually have it go along a specified routing path. So what I'll show you here is if I select down here, you can kind of see I've got the highlighted in orange. That is a routing path that I've created. What that means is as I'm routing wires from these different components to their, between each other, it's going to actually be updating that information. It's going to try to stay along the ducts and the rails and then follow that path where necessary. And this helps for panel optimization of what I'm working on. If I want to go ahead and say route wires, I'm going to go ahead and just let it run, and you'll see, within a matter of seconds, it's going to have automatically routed that information and set up a wire routing for this control box. So now you can see this has been updated, and it automatically chose, like I mentioned, the ducts and the 3D sketch path that I created to route those wires between the different components in this control box. And that was not something I had to define. It automatically chose that based on the sketch paths that I was dealing with. Now what you see here is I've actually, for performance issues, for performance reasons, I actually chose to use just sketches. If I go ahead and let me go ahead and come back to the routing of wires again. One thing I'll mention before I do this is the colors that you see here are all automatically linked up with what was defined in the 2D tool. So if you remember the red, orange, green, and blue wires, these match up to those red, orange, green, and blue wires that we saw in the 2D sketch tool. Again, I used a sketching so that would render faster. If I wanted to go ahead and create something else, I could come into the routing of the wires, and I could actually say I want it to be what's called a SolidWorks route. And what that will do is that will actually render the physical wires, all the multiples of wires, and it'll be a much cleaner drawing of those wires. However, it does take a bit longer, and I didn't want to take too much time up for this demonstration's purposes. If I update the bill of materials, again, I mentioned this is a bidirectional link between the two systems. So I could go in and I could actually update the bill of material properties, save the information that I've modified, and that information is automatically being updated in the 2D project as well. So any updates to the list of wires that I have, bills of materials that I was looking at, that information is now updated in the system as well. And the main point of this is to allow the 2D and 3D users to actually collaborate together much earlier in the design process, instead of the traditional view of having the electrical work being done kind of tossed over the wall and then tossed into the 3D world, where it kind of just disappears unless someone has to send it back over the wall. So that's a look at the SolidWorks electrical tool. The next thing I want to take a look at is SolidWorks plastics. So I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to open up an example of something that might be a molded tool that we're dealing with. So this is going to be a two-part tool, what we're dealing with, two-part assembly where you've got a front and a back part of a mold that we're working on. If I want to do some simulation and be able to choose my materials, I can run the SolidWorks plastics interface to help me determine, whether there'll be defects in manufacturing. It'll help you decide if appearance is going to be an issue with your molded parts, anything along those lines. What it is it's actually another add-in into the software. So those of you who are familiar with SolidWorks, it's just one more thing that you're going to actually be able to turn on and off. Here you see SolidWorks plastics, and as I did not mention earlier, that there is the SolidWorks electrical add-in as well. So those are just plugins or add-ins that you can turn on and off. If I wanted to actually do a mold analysis on this part that I'm working on, I could just come over here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shell this part. And that's going to set up a mesh for me that I can run this analysis against. I have a number of different things that I can choose from with this. One of them being the type of material that I'm working with, and again, this is coming straight out of an extensive database that's provided and updated within the SolidWorks plastics tool. So we see we've got a number of different types of polymers that we can deal with. We can I'll go ahead and choose one of these plastics in here. You've got other things that you can specify if you want to look at things like the melt temperature. You can specify the mold temperature, the filling time, and any of these things will come set with fairly intelligent default values set to them. However, it does give you the ability to modify that if you already know the temperatures and the mold temperatures or the fill time you want. The next thing I would want to do is I just want to go ahead and select a gate. So basically this is where I'm going to be injecting the plastic from. So I'll just go ahead and I'll pick a spot right here. I'll add that gate. So now I've chosen the spot where I'm going to be having the injection run from. I'll go ahead and run this analysis. And we can see as this analysis is running, it's actually simulating the injection of the plastic or whatever you're using into the mold that you're dealing with. This is useful because you can see if there's going to be any weld lines or air pockets, or if you have it set up so that there's not going to be enough time for it to, the plastic will harden before it completely fills the mold. And these are the types of things that plastics will be getting you as you're going through this. So we'll just let this run here for another second, and then we'll be able to see the different results that we have. Okay, so now we've got our results, and we can see this mold design that we've done. I can actually animate the results of this, so we can actually show me the fill time as it goes along. You notice this is how it fills over time. One of the nice things that I found in SolidWorks Plastics tool is there's the concept of they call it the results advisor. And that's because they give you a number of different charts or plots that you can generate, and it actually gives you information over here. If you notice, this comes up when I select on that of what's going on and what each of these things represents. I can look for different things, as I mentioned, like I can look for weld lines, you know, where the information, where the flows come together and create weld lines. I can look at things for air traps, and this might be one of the things I want to look at. So we notice there's like 3 or 4 areas here where I might have air traps. This is if I don't have holes generated in the right areas to allow air to escape. So one of the things I might want to do based on this is come back in here, and let's go back to the gate settings. I've got one gate. Let me put another gate on the other side and see how this is going to affect our analysis. So if I go ahead and run this, we'll do a pack on that. And since I'm filling it from both sides, I would expect, you know, some of those air pockets, the one that was appearing over in this corner, you know, probably would go away, because hopefully I'm bringing the flow in from both sides simultaneously, and they will end up, you know, coming out through maybe an air pocket that we have on one of these 2 sections. And this allows you to run those types of studies to minimize the amount of defects that you may have in your tool or whatever you're creating, and generate that information for you. So it looks like it's almost done here. There we go. So now we can see, if I take a look at this, and I want to look at the different air traps, we can see that they're pretty much focused right around these things. So that could be something we could solve, you know, with an air vent or something along those lines. So that's kind of what you can get from just the simple analysis of what you're dealing with in the basics of the flow. Now the other thing that you may run into is, if I'll go ahead and close this out. If you notice, I was just doing the analysis on the back panel of this. There's also a front panel of this, and these actually have 2 different geometries. When you're doing something like that, especially if these parts are going to be mating and they're going to become one overall assembly, generally what you're going to want to do is to have these things be made out of the same mold. And the reason that you're going to want to do that is because you're going to want it to be done out of the same mold process, so you have the same structural materials, you know, you get the same color distribution, things along those lines. And what you get here is the ability to actually do a study, and this is actually an iterative study in SolidWorks Plastics, which allows you to do runner balancing. So if I go ahead and open up runner balancing, what this does is this gives me a number of different iterations, and if I If I move this over here, you can see what's going on is I've got a much larger volume that I have to fill on the right-hand side than I do on the left-hand side. So what I need to do is I need to take this runner and I need to balance that so that the mold actually finishes up at the exact same time. So if we look at the flow results from this runner balancing, the goal that we have here is, as you watch this, especially on fill time, you want both of these molds to finish filling, you know, at as close as you can get it to the same time. And that's again the reasons for structural and cosmetic issues that may be caused with that. So those are just a few of the things that you get with the SolidWorks plastics module that are useful for people that work in the plastics environment. So the next area I want to go into, I'm going to take a little bit of a break out of the SolidWorks tool itself. Just by a show of hands, for those of you who are out there, how many of you deal with a PDM of some type, whether it enterprise PDM specifically, but any type of PDM system, or know what it is? Okay, none of you. All right, well, I'm still going to talk about it. Oh, there's a hand that came up. All right. So some of the enhancements that came in that are in Enterprise PDM, and I'll go through this relatively quickly. First one I'll go through is actually from the SolidWorks perspective, so I lied a little bit on saying that I wasn't going to be in SolidWorks. But if I'm working with a piece of information in Enterprise PDM, I'll go ahead and open up this assembly. This actually resides in EPDM. If I'm looking at this information out here, we can see there's a few things that have been modified for those of you who have used Enterprise PDM in the past. Basically, a lot of the enhancements in EPDM that have come out in 2013 are focused around the ease of use and the user interface. For people who have limited bandwidth on their screen, they've actually implemented a expand bar here, so you can see additional elements that may have been hidden, so you no longer have to drag your bar all the way out to the top. Some other things that they've brought in are some presence awareness. So anytime you have a user and you want to see what that user is doing, you can see just by mousing over the name of that user, you can see they've got how long they've been logged into Enterprise PDM, or if they're logged in, if they have any files checked out. You have the ability to see a presence note. Though this was only as useful as someone who's using it, but you can actually set that information to let people know what you're doing, and that information you actually can directly send them a message straight from that box. So if you want to send a message to somebody, you can actually just look at their presence note and then send the message. And you can go ahead and send that. And so you can send them information. Some other things that are kind of more streamlined in what you can do is if I have a part checked out and I want to check this part back in, you have a couple of options you can set that you didn't have before. One is if you want to keep working on it, you can actually reload the files. So you would check it in and then reload it so you get the updated version of it. Or you can actually close the files, which will keep you from actually modifying a file once you've checked it in and no longer have the right process to that. The other areas that are updated in Enterprise PDM would be through the interface again. If we were to look at a piece of data in here, we've updated the toolbars that you see down here in the lower half of the screen. The goal with this was to make it look more like the Microsoft ribbon style. Now that's up to you whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's easier to use, but you actually have the continuous style of the Microsoft interface in the way that they're showing things that you're dealing with. Some of the other things you have the ability to do are just some features like when you're doing a copy and a paste as reference. If you want to paste, for example, a document in as a reference to a part, you now have the ability to update how many you want to put in there if you have a quantity reference. So say you have something that's representing grease, you could actually put a quantity of 4 in there. You don't have to do a multiple paste as reference of what you're dealing with. And then the other thing you have the ability to do is we introduced the concept of a version-free variable. In the past, anytime you were updating a variable on a data card for an assembly or a part or any type of a document in Enterprise PDM, that variable was tied specifically to that version of the part. That way you could see, what changed from version to version of that part. Over the years, we've heard feedback that there are certain things where the variable doesn't matter, and if I update it in one, I want it to update in all of them. And I don't want to have to check the file out to make an update to that variable. So we've introduced a version-free variable which allows you to not have to check out a part, and you can just update that specific variable right on the card without having to, and then save it without having to do a checkout or a check-in of that information. And then the final area that we've actually done significant work, or not we, but SolidWorks has done significant work with, is around workflows. They've actually done a major overhaul of the workflows. So the first thing you'll see is it actually looks a little bit nicer and cleaner of what you're dealing with. You no longer have the right bar on the side every time you click on something. You just double-click something, you get all the different properties where you can see the permissions for that specific task, what revision scheme, what notifications come out, any of those types of things. The other thing we've introduced is the ability to zoom in and out. That was something that was asked for a lot. People, as they get more complex workflow processes, got tired of having to do, the pan and zoom, pan to the left, pan to the right, pan up, down to see it. This allows you to actually zoom out and get an overall view of the flow that you're working with. And then the other big thing that's been modified in the workflows is we actually have the ability to now have a couple of different things. One is we actually have the ability to have a parallel transaction. So in the past, for those of you who have used this tool, you had to do some looping in the different states to do checking of whether or not someone's done something. Now we actually have the ability to have a transition be indicated as a parallel transition. Other things that we have the ability to do is actually have notifications go out, kind of like an escalation procedure, where you can, after something's been delayed in a state for a certain amount of time, you can actually notify somebody that something needs to be done with it. So you can actually have more of an escalation procedure of what's going on in there. So that's just some of the stuff that's been updated for the 2013 version of Enterprise PDM. Now the last area I'm going to go into is the 3D via capabilities and updates that we have. One thing that I will ask at this point again, if you can, how many of you are familiar with 3D via at all? What it is? Anything along those lines? Okay. Sounds like a decent proportion of you guys have heard of it, but for those of you who haven't, I won't go into a full showing of what it does, but I'll just kind of let you know. What 3D via is it's basically a way for you to create technical publications based off of the CAD information that you've been dealing with. So what we'll see here is, I'll take a look at this. We've got a part here, an assembly that we're working with. And there's a couple of different views that are automatically there when I created this project, or that I added in. And these were based directly off of the model views of that information. So we see here, this gives me different information. I have the ability to, turn things off. I can turn shadow on and off. I can, turn the mirror on and off, turn the grid on and off, any of those types of things. So this view here, and also the exploded view you're dealing with, this is actually taken directly from an exploded state view that was coming from the SolidWorks models. So you could actually start with an exploded view that you're dealing with. The other thing you have the ability to do is to create your own views. So what we see here is I've gone ahead and I've created a new view, and done some explosions of this, and I've drawn some leader lines, and I've added some bullet points to this. And I also added a bill of material. You can do things like it's got intelligent highlighting, so I can actually go over the bill of material or vice versa, and it will highlight what I'm working with on the actual system. All of this stuff is stuff that's been in 3D via already. Now, some of the things that are new to 3D via is, you notice here I've got my exploded view here, and I've got my different callouts that I'm working on, but they're kind of random. And for those of you who have worked with this, if I move this around, they don't really move with it, and it might get a little cluttered if I need to zoom this out. Something that is not new is the concept of a magnetic line. So if I wanted to actually have these things line up, just kind of like you would in a drawing file, I'll go ahead and create a magnetic line here. And then as I grab this and drag it across these guys, it snaps onto it, and I can have it in here. So that's something that's been in 3D for a while. The thing that is new to this is I actually have the ability to align this magnetic line with a piece of geometry that I'm working with here. So for example, if I select on this line, and I can select on this little magnetic information, and then I can come in here and I can pick an axis right here. And now that magnetic line is actually in line with that geometry. So now I've got a much cleaner looking thing. It's using the same perspective of what I'm dealing with. Another new thing that's actually available in 3D is the ability to actually have an image library. So if I'm working and I want to add some of my own information, I can actually take some callouts. For example, if I want to actually add a callout here that I want to have something be unscrewed, or if I want to have something add grease to it or add oil to it, I've got the ability to have those calls. And this is from a standard library that's provided. The other thing you have is you actually have the ability to create your own information, and you can add that information onto the system as well. So if I come in here, I could actually come and drag this, bring it in here, and I actually have the ability to add that information, add my own logos. I can actually add other information if I wanted to have say I want to glue something in here. I can actually do that. I can add callouts and lines to it, and so I can actually add visual information to these drawings. That's another thing that's new in the 3D Via tool. Now the last thing that I'll go over is you actually have the ability to make a technical illustration, and what this is, this gives you the ability to actually publish this information into a web document or something along those lines. Now, if you notice, I'm in the publishing thing, but I still have the ability to move things around. So, for example, if you notice, I'm no longer in a widescreen format, so I'm going to want to reposition this information here. I might want to move this guy over here. I might want to make this bigger. So I'm now getting a new view of this information, and I can actually set this up how it's going to look as I publish this information. And then I can go ahead and I can publish this information, and it's actually going to turn it into a document that I can actually interact with. So we'll see here, this is actually going to open it up. And I've got my new exploded view image with my logo and my bill of material. And if you notice, it's actually still interactive. So this could be something that could be published on a web page, anything that's accessible. So it doesn't have to be just a printed document that you're publishing. So that's the other new thing that we're working on with the 3D Via capabilities. So that's all that I have to show you in terms of a demonstration, but there is one other thing that I was going to talk about, and that is for those of you that are dealing with or own iPads, there is the eDrawings iPad application that is now available. There is a standard eDrawings application as well as an eDrawings Pro application, which gives you more functionality. That's one of those things, I think it's like $2 or $4 to get the eDrawings application. I have it on my iPad, and it's good for being able to interrogate and view the information through the eDrawings format if you're not at your actual computer. So anyway, thank you guys for coming to this. That's all I have to show. We'll check and see if there are any questions that were out there. Feel free to ask them now, either of anything that Dennis showed you or I showed you, but other than that, hopefully this gave you a good view. It was not everything that's new in 2013, but some of the things we thought were highlights. So we'll take any questions you have them. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great afternoon. Okay, I saw there was just one question, but that was someone saying they had enterprise PDM. I don't think I see any other questions, Dennis. I think at this point we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Well, I was just wondering if they had questions that they wanted to ask verbally. We can go ahead and unmute if they didn't want to type it. So I'm going to go ahead and
feel free.
close the hands. And if you have a question, just raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and unmute you so you can ask it, and we can cover it quickly if you like. Okay, well, I look forward to hearing from you guys on the tech line at some point. Feel free to go ahead and call. Oh, we did have a question here. Yes, sir. Stephen, what did you want to ask? I can't hear you if you're talking. There we go. Windows preview of items with numbers for the part number. You're talking about instead of the file name so that you can see the part number properties? The homemade PDM creates random part numbers for each part. Well, if you used the custom properties within the SolidWorks part, you could actually assign a part number to it when you created the part. And if you were using the property window creator, what is it called, Clay? The interface that creates
Property manager or
property tab.
Yeah, property builder, I think.
Yeah, you can use a property builder to actually create that. So are you saying your PDM system doesn't pull the custom properties from SolidWorks? So I'm assuming that your PDM system doesn't pull it. Oh, will not show thumbnail preview from the window dropdown. I guess we're probably going to have to try to address this offline here because I'm unclear on what you're talking about there, Stephen. Do you understand what he means there, Clay?
I believe what he's saying, and I thought SolidWorks did this, but again, that's not my main product, is that if you're looking at like a list of SolidWorks files in Windows, and you go to the thumbnail view of it, I think that might be what he's talking about.
Or is it the details?
think at this point that might be worth
Yeah, we're going to have to address that
having a
offline. Yeah.
call. Do you have do you have the number that you can call into our support line? Oh, you did. Okay. I'm gonna say if what is do you have the number for the request? I can look that up and we can get the details for you.
Wow, that's a long time.
Okay.
Is it under your name, Stephen? I can go ahead and look it up as an open request. We'll see what's going on with it.
Okay. Well,